Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Soul Food Poetry Night. Can you hear me okay? Okay. I'm Michael Dillon Welch, and I've been doing a little gig for poetry lovers of Redmond for almost 10 years now. We're very fortunate tonight to have two readers from Bellingham, and for the first time ever, we're using technology. So we have a multimedia poetry presentation tonight, and I'm looking forward to it. To get us started tonight, I'd like to begin by remembering the poet Madeleine de Vries. She was 95 when she died a week ago yesterday, and was one of the Pacific Northwest's most prominent undersung poets. And she also came here to read for the Soul Food Poetry Night on April 19 in 2007, so early on in our time. She read with Thomas Aslan that night. And I'd like to read a poem by her in the memory of Madeleine de Vries. This is called For Ed Harkness, Lost in a Contributor's Note in the Quarterly West. Maybe you wrote too near the vanishing point, and that coyote cover serenading the moon is your mourner. Did you trip on a mismatched foot, fall over the western edge map makers took away into Pacific cold like the sad, mad rest of us grieving? Ed, we know you're in there. Come clean or we'll shoot for the moon. We follow the faintly criminal cast of your poems. You can't trust those underworld types, their masks and their patsies. We know all about your hearing loss. Didn't Beethoven, deaf, hang around until 80? I'm sorry I wrote asking for those books of mine you didn't borrow. It's okay if you keep them. Just make things right on the planet. Take over the world, dead or alive. I favor a dim religious light myself, stoking the furnace with coffee, stalking your I lost wind with trained police dogs. I've staked out the P.O. and the little mags, tacked wanted all over town. Ed, this is the dead letter office in sheep's clothing. Washington on the lam, code perfect every page, bleeding into the gutter, waiting the new moon of the next issue. Forget that fine chapbook stuff. All of us love you. Send the regular contributors poems. Here's 50 moons of reward. In memory of Madeleine de Vries. Tonight we have two readers. We'll have our featured readers first, then we'll take a break. And if you haven't yet signed up for the open mic reading, you can do that at the break. I see the open mic sheet over there. And tonight's question was? What was the question? Is the sound of water enough? So that should get you going. So answer that question. And if you haven't answered it, go back to the sheet and add your answer. And we'll say your answer when we introduce you at the open mic. And that will be after our break. And there's also some publications to look at up here. So tonight's two readers are J.I. Kleinberg and Luther Allen, and I'm very pleased that they've made the trek all the way here from Bellingham. And these are the official bios. Judy Kleinberg is an artist, poet, and freelance writer who lives in Bellingham and blogs most days at Chocolate is a Verb at WordPress.com. and the poetry department for WordPress.com. She has been nominated for a Pushcart Prize. We've lost our mic. Can you hear me? She has been nominated for a Pushcart Prize, and her writing has appeared most recently in Pilgrimage magazine, Atlas and Alice, Clover, a literary rag, which is a great new magazine that I was just published in. Not new, but I was newly published in it. Mojave River Review, Northwind, and Defenestration, as well as the collection Vanishing into the Leaves. And there's a new book called Noisy Water that I see lurking down on the table, which is a brand new anthology that's not even been published since it has a December date on it. But it's that new, and you can have the first look at it tonight. I should mention that the blogs that Judy runs are my favorite poetry-related blogs. Always these wonderful news items that she finds from around the country, occasionally around the world, as well as a good focus on Pacific Northwest activities. So check out the Chocolate is a Verb or the Poetry Department. Look for either of those. The Poetry Department has the news, and the Chocolate is a Verb is mostly your own activity, yes. So those are both worth checking out. And our other reader tonight is Luther Allen, and I'm introducing them both because I think you're doing something interactively. We'll find out. Luther writes poems and designs buildings from Sumas Mountain in northwestern Washington. He also co-facilitates Speakeasy, a community poetry reading in Bellingham. He has recently had poems appear in Clover, Floating Bridge, Edge of Humanity magazine, Cirque, and the Buses of Bellingham via the Boynton Poetry Contest. Learn more about Luther's collection of poems, The View from Lummi Island, online at Othermind Press on the WordPress blog. And copies are available here if you want to take a look. I'm very pleased to have Judy and Luther read for us tonight. And I have a feeling we're in for something really special. So welcome to Luther and Judy.
So is this working? Well enough? Too well? Okay. Okay. First of all, I'm the PR guy. I'm the warm-up band for Judy, right? So we just got finished publishing an anthology of Whatcom County poets, and there's 101 poets in the anthology, including this guy right here, Matthew Brower, was included in the book, as I recall. Yes? Yeah. Yes, I think so too. Yeah, we told him he was. So we have copies of that for sale, and also my book down on the table. So, and this is all through we've been doing a poetry series for about only 6 years, Michael, in Bellingham, and called Speakeasy. And so that kind of flowed from that. So I'm going to start tonight with my SoulFood poem that I brought. And I'm originally from the Southwest, so there's a little tie-in with that. Bedded down in the gray rain and old and new growth of the Pacific Northwest, praying. In mindless morning, eggs, sausage, toast, and on the eggs, 2 spoons of torrid red chili. From New Mexico, Chimayo, Powake, Nambe, drawing the precious trickle from Acequia Madre to condense the clear, hot light into this chile rojo, searing the soul, delivering sangre de Cristo deep inside memory, heart, home, roots. And I remember, like the raven, I live in 2 places. I have 2 homes, and I have 2 names. Both pray as I eat. So I don't know how you guys, but I'm happy to hold applause until the end so we can wade through this. So a few years back, I published a book called The View from Lummi Island. And there's being a desert kid, moved to an island just outside of Bellingham and lived there for 7 years, and I wrote 365 poems, one for each day of the year, mainly nature-based, but it was primarily about the experience of being on an island in the Northwest. And so I'm going to start with a few poems from this time of year. November 15th. Bushwhacking, the perfect description. Are we up? We're up. Breaking the lifeless limbs, squishing mosses, crumbling aged logs, on hands and knees, following the blacktail trails. Behind me, a path of destruction, change. In front, 2-point buck, roused from his bed, nibbles here and there, antlers curve in the ghost of last light. November 16, dormant. Leaves loosen and alight, returning to soil and root. Stems and branches becoming brittle, stark. Sap drains and coils in the cold roots. And like a seed, I unfold, harden at the edges, go into the center, nurturing, processing, holding. The world suspends, waits, watches through dim light. The unconscious barely breathe. And the work is to dream, just dream. November 19th, that's today. Oh, yeah. Cold squish of black mud. Wind beats.
New water.
Mauve tangle
Bleeds.
of bare limbs.
Into buck.
Frantic.
Track. Pools.
Rain last night.
Rain tonight.
Light fall. November 20, we kick the scatter of frosted leaves scrumbling and hear within the deep seasonal delight of change. Eyes taste the color, deep of umber, burnt umber, bronzed umber, elemental earth. The color of soil that gravels our soul, rhymed in delicate ephemeral crystal, and let those parts of us that need to fall and die and melt back unto the cold brown earth, and the rest walk on, kicking the scatter in delight. So I want to transition to some later poems. This one's called A Matter of Scale and comes in 3 parts. So 1. The Wizard Nebula, developing star cluster NGC 738, 100 light years across, 100 light years across, extruding from nothingness ghostly thunderheads and dust storms like globs of algae run wild, brown, orange, a turquoise core, enough gravitation to form stars seen here 8,000 light years later, stars that will see our sun die. 2. Hexagonal storm on Saturn, a swarming olive bile 4 times the size of Earth, red-stained polar vortex, and how? Why? The planar rings, a precise slicing cerulean, round and round, on and on. 3. I sit at my table, whistling along with a song, spooning steaming gumbo into a gleaming white bowl. The heavy fog of abused memory. Starts with a quote from Rumi, "The longing is for the longing itself." Today it is easier. On my walk, I find a penny, a robin's egg, and the word chrism. Then the minds of the monkeys line up on opposite sides of the road, howling, primal, vicious. One stands up, screams, and both sides charge. Run a few yards past each other, sit, snicker, look around. Begin to pick nits, their work seemingly done for the day. Jim Holt's calm voice comes over the loudspeaker. The duelist has a seemingly harder job. He has to explain why both matter exists and why the mind exists. Farther down the road, closer to home, there are starlings, mustangs, and Catholics. I find a scrap of paper that says, in 2014, the Seattle Mariners pitcher Felix Hernandez made $750,000 each time he took to the mound. I've taken to a lot of mounds, was never paid that much. The point of tomorrow's poem I already know. We need to find a way to teach God to be God again. With this, and armed with Auden, we must love another or die. I take a slow fall into shadow, my mother's shadow, the horribleness. I stroked and stroked her beautiful body like an injured child. I did not know how to leave, but I left. I stand for a long time in the rain, the slow plip of drops on my jacket. I remember that sound, waiting for a deer, waiting for a fish. Being rain, being river, I will be again. I see the edge of a fenced garden, a rusting plow, the labyrinth to the side, a mosquito on my hand, a leaning apple tree still bare in this early spring, draped with an antler and 2 strands of beads. Slow, dark bodies of clouds, at times the high ridge beyond, the sound of the unseen river. Galaxies form and disappear. It may appear that I am waiting. I am not. Okay, so we're going to do a little, this is a poem from, the Lummi book, and this is audience participation. Okay, so I know it gets bleak sometimes listening to people, so if you will, everybody close their eyes. So this is a song, a poem about wave sound. And the instructions are say aloud, repeat it until you get it right. And so a lot of this book is about sensory experience and the kind of synesthesia of going out and just trying to experience what's there without models. So imagine yourself on Lummi Island. It's a little island in San Juan's, north of San Juan's. There's a bit of a wave coming in to a gravelly sandy beach. And as the wave gets close, it kind of curls. As it curls, it kind of smashes into the gravel a little bit. So we're going to make the sound that it makes as it hits the beach. So repeat after me, if you would. Shia. 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 Thank you. So this is a poem about nature written in downtown LA. So through the thin curtain, the silhouette of an insect moving flower to flower. A breeze morphs the lens, the shadows billow. I am caught, wrapped, transformed. The insect knows nothing of vicarious curtains, the word breeze. Everything about wrapped. I live on Sumas Mountain, which is kind of the first bump across the county after the flatlands. So there's the Salish Sea and then the North County of Whatcom, and then the first bump is Sumas Mountain. It's about 2,500 feet up. I live at the base of that. So I wrote a poem about living on the mountain. I can't even begin to keep up with the slugs, nor minister to more than a few of the grotesque leaves of the big leaf maple in the fall. And I remain mystified about the survival of the blacktail and coyote and cougar during the cold, endless rain and sopping long nights of winter. The black bears, I am sure, winter sleep down at the casino, waking occasionally to gorge on fried chicken and that expensive craft beer. Play a few hands of blackjack, warm and dry, grinning. This is a poem written about part of the fire experience this summer. The distance disappears. Those 3 young firefighters, alive as leaping trout, caught by the perfectly cast fly, probably thinking, when we get back, we'll have watermelon, cold and red, juicy, just before the oven opened its furious mouth. As I tell everybody that wants to hear, I've been writing a lot of poems about death for some reason. So other than the preceding one, I'm going to do one more and spare you the rest, I think. So this poem is titled, So Goddamn Beautiful. and starts with an excerpt from Emily Dickinson. The ocean's heart, too smooth, too blue, to break for you. The daily work of becoming gray, being gray, not feeling gray at all, doing fewer things that don't matter, and stoking the struggling fire becomes so incisively important. And what matters some days, really matters, is to sit quiet in that other expanse and just be, like water, the ocean, smooth, a wondrous blue. The ashes of aging smeared on the body as accumulation of sags and scars and blotches in the mind, remembering less each day, calm with knowing there is no path that goes all the way. Every path leads to the same place. Breath, no breath. How sweet sad to sit before that fire. The word alone becomes more profound. We tell ourselves, others, all we really need is sleep for a long time and everything will be all right. We see the flame in each other's eyes and we know that flame will drown as we speak more fervently, more kindly about our nonsenses. This final camaraderie. For whatever reasons, we walk this journey together, seeing clearly that we are being consumed by the ever-quickening need to know what happens when this is over. The ocean is everything blue, vast and compelling. We cannot pray fast enough. So a couple of years ago, I wrote a grace for Thanksgiving, which I would like to read. And so this starts out by everybody at the table. Some people have experienced this. Everybody sitting at the table with an empty plate in front of them, and I go around and have everybody select a stone out of a sack and place it on the plate in front of them. So, Thanksgiving. 14 billion years ago, something happened. Out of nothing, or perhaps out of something. We may never find out. But from that instant, physics threw a wild party, which for all we know, may never end. Somewhere along the line, this planet congealed and hooked up with a star. At some point, there was a twitch in the muck, and somehow that twitch gave rise to another twitch, and that started a wild party of its own. It's hard to say which was the biggest miracle. Some 4 billion years after that first twitch, you are sitting at this table with an ordinary stone in front of you. Through a convergent path of fate that required lots of heat and gravity and vast numbers of births and deaths, and more than a little luck, you have come together. Take the stone in your hand, feel it, look at it. The stone is something like your ancestor. You are something like its caretaker, its eyes, its mind. Let us be grateful for this wildness, for this wild, astounding opportunity. So, last poem in this sequence, 5 years ago? I don't know. A while back, Judy and I went to a workshop at the Hugo House taught by Patricia Smith, who wrote this amazing persona poem about Hurricane Katrina going through New Orleans. And her last exercise, there was about 15 of us sitting at the table, and I should add, it was Valentine's Day. And Judy and I had been together for a couple of years, but not too long. And she said, well, I would like you to think of the person you love most in the world. So, I mean, like, what are you going to do? Right, Valentine's Day? So we looked at, she looked at me, and so, okay. So, okay, we had our people. And she says, now I want you to envision that person dead, lying naked on a morgue table, and I want you to write a poem about dressing that person for their burial, very slowly. So, we're going to read the poems that came out of that. I'll read mine first. I guess I wasn't done with the death poems, right? So, I dress you, I dress you. I slump to the cold and sterile floor. I look at you, in you, a long time, until I am with you. My being still with breath, your being still without breath. Acknowledge, merge. I rise and come to your body. I dress you first with a touch of my hands, watching hard, warm to cold, sensate to insensate, moving to motionless, from forehead to mouth to neck to breasts to navel. I feel your soul flinch and I grin, to pelvis, to hips, legs, feet, and hold the toes for a long time. I dress you with words, your beloved words, sentencing the smoothness, writing the wrinkles, a novel for the navel, poems, poems, poems for all the rest. I dress you in chocolate and champagne, and I know why you've died. It is a tribute to your deepest nature. I pull a pair of baggy sweats up your legs, softly, with terminal slowness, with my clumsiness you know so well. Snuggle them to your waist, not the tie. No need for the constraint of underwear on this journey. I have worn your oversized shirts and pullovers, some probably your dad's, as gifts and loans for years. I think that was important to you, needed. I don't know why, the reason never mattered. I mirror that back to you now and wrestle my old ragged t-shirt onto your stiffness, signed with tears, rips, dripped paint, and the occasional stain of salmon blood. I pull up the t-shirt, expose the midriff, and set one of your father's wood carvings on that navel. It finally relaxes, safe at last. I dress you with nothing from your mother, a blessing I can give, a void that her spirit can now take until eternity to fill. I chortle that bull seal laugh and take the glue gun and your beads and baubles and laminate every fingernail and every toenail with a circus of color and texture, that circus you made so many times, so many ways. I learned to crochet and take every last bit of your wool and mylar and God knows what else and crochet a long scarf, and I dress you with that, just as you had crocheted yourself into the world. The hair, well, the hair. It needs no dressing. It runs wild, as it always has, to every corner of the universe except the one it's supposed to be in. I am done, and I know why you've died. You have smiled yourself to death, given me a life I had never imagined. Thank you.
Do you want to work this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I'm going to, yeah. Okay, let's see if this works. Hello, so nice. Thank you very much for being here. Lovely, let's see. So this was quite an experience, this class with Patricia Smith. And as you can imagine, it could have been an emotional just chaos, but it seemed to go quite well. We were the only couple in the class, and a lot of people had said that they loved somebody like a child, and then they said, oh no, they couldn't write that poem, and so they chose somebody else. But we stuck with it, and we wrote our poem. So now I'm going to read the poem that I wrote about Luther. Dressing you. 1,000 yards from the door to where you lie, and in my arms this meager pile of clothes. The room so cold, and oh, my icy hands. How can I touch you with these icy hands? Put them on me, you always say, just put them on me. And you don't gasp or scold, but heat me from your core. Yet now I must begin, give you my heat, learn this new language of silence, read the runes of loss, the braille of flesh, as if this terrible dance might restore your laughter, as if the heat of love rubbed like a salve on your skin might awaken a sleeping pulse. Warm water, soft cloth, green rectangle of fragrant soap. I wipe the soft curves of your brow, trace the small sculpture of your ear, smooth my fingertips over your eyelids. My thumbs seek the sweet and much-kissed shaven spot on your cheek. You have touched every part of me, and now my hands read the entire length of you, every cell a memory, a story, a poem. Warm water, foaming soap, soft cloth, the pressure of my breasts against your arm in that familiar way. I kiss your mouth, cool, soft, a hint of peppermint chapstick. You are clean as you would want, and soon I must dress you. But I'm not ready, not finished with these preparations. I feel you standing at my side, watching, your curiosity reaching into yet another dimension. There are words I meant to say, and now I will write them on your skin, send them with you on your long journey. With a black Sharpie down the long stretch of one leg I print, you have pried away the battered bulwark of my armor, parsed the sentences of my heart, all verbs. On the other I write, you taught me to trust and risk and joy. On the silken skin of your forearm, I had given up on the possibility of a love like this. And now these clothes, no stiff suits for this journey, no ties or belts or cop shoes. This t-shirt, green as moss, these jeans, well worn, buttoned for the last time, socks, slippers, a second shirt, rolled cuffs, 2 photos in the pocket, a Lummi Island sunset, and you with that big halibut. I comb your hair, mess it up and comb it again, then tuck the comb into your back pocket. In the front, your pocket knife, chapstick, 3 small stones. You are ready, but I am not. I climb on the table next to you to relearn, together, alone, together, the rhythm of a single beating heart. So this is my soul food poem this evening. It's called Metric. Someday I'll move into a new home, smaller than this, but spacious enough. I have been excavating the foundation my whole life, alert as an archaeologist to clues my work is nearly done. What calculus of granite to take the measure of a room I will never see? I carry my grandfather's dowsing rod to know a fragrant cleft of earth, a growing parabola of darkness. To plumb this new topography, I parse the air with tweezer, teaspoon, theodolite, build a device for weighing echoes, touch each stone as if it were my last, memorize gravity's madrigals and evening's a cappella lullaby. Before the metronome quiets, I work rosary, abacus, dervish of light, to record each subtraction of breath and measure my wings for a shroud. So now we have dispensed with death for the evening, and I'm going to change direction a little bit. In addition to the types of poems that I've been reading, I also do a lot of found poems. And I want to take a moment back up here and say thank you to Michael for inviting us here, and thank you to all of you for being here, and to the readers who are going to read later. Thank you to you too, and thank you to Luther for reading. So I'm going to read some found poems. I'm going to read some more conventional poems. And I'm going to start by talking a little bit about process. But first, I'm going to read a poem. And so just listen first. At its heart, ferment and velvet, a lover's obscure art falls a long way, all at once, into the beautiful fire. So this is what this poem looks like. And these are collages. There is certainly a long history of found poetry. As far as we know, one of the earliest people was a man named Caleb Whiteford, who was Benjamin Franklin's next-door neighbor, who tore out segments of newspaper to create collages. And there was a lot of found poetry that happened in the Dada period and right up to the present. A lot of people do what I call ransom note poetry, where they cut out a single word or individual words and put them together for poems. And mine is similar to that, but I, of course, have imposed a few rules on myself. And my rules are that every piece, every little chunk of text has to have more than one line. And the words in each line, the first line, the second line, if there's a third line, have to be completely out of context from each other. In their original context, the words had no relation to one another. So what I'm doing is I'm finding these weird little chunks of words. So I'm creating an accidental syntax of unintended phrases. And this just happens through the happenstance of page layout in magazines. So I'm going to give you an idea of where this poem came from. I'm going to just take you quickly through the pages. So this is the first one. You can see there's a little bit of text. You probably can't read it at the bottom, but it says, in that little circled area, that's at its heart, ferment and velvet. Ferment was taken out of fermentation. Velvet was taken out of velvety, so on. The next one, a lover's obscure art. The next one, falls a long way. And the next one, all at once into the beautiful fire. And here's the poem again. At its heart, ferment and velvet, a lover's obscure art falls a long way, all at once, into the beautiful fire. These are small pieces. They're just a quarter of a page, and they're scanned at high resolution. And just so you know how truly obsessive this is my work table. Those are all little tiny pieces of paper. So I'm going to show you one more process, and then I'm just going to read a few. This is an ad for a car. You can change it. And you can see what I saw in there. I'm not sure if you can see the highlighted text. And then the next one is the poem. The poem is Architect of the Sky. The wind invites the light. And truly, there is no accounting for how I see these little bits of text. It is just something that happens. So now I'm going to just read a few of those. Okay. Yeah. Something deepens the middle of us, the room inside us, all magnet. succulent hardware anchors the heart. From needs, our destination, the first roar, the name of want, the first embrace, love, hungry. The night, the clouds, the crimson stars, all the bells learned to say desire. So I'm going to read a few more regular poems now. The desert. We each set out across the desert, betrayed by optimism, deceived by perception, what is far seeming near, without hunger or thirst in the body, only in the spirit. Our tracks wind-blown, so there is no turning back. The meaning of shadows, a calligraphy of circles, a language we do not speak, our bones calling to the sun, mercy and desire. And this is Arroyo, and it opens with a quote, a descriptive quote. The bridge, 285 feet long and 75 feet wide, stood 2 stories deep at its ends and 3 at its center. The bridge is gone, not blown up or torn down, buried. It wasn't old or falling apart. It crossed an arroyo that could be filled up to make more land. So the bridge was shoveled under and paved over. The double course of blind arches, the Romanesque rosette and diamond patterns, the carved limestone and decorative parapets, buried whole. The scar smoothed with walkways and grass, there, but not there. The bridge haunts me, shoveled under, paved over, there, but not there. And this is the bridge. That's on the UCLA campus. That bridge is currently under Dixon Plaza. Okay. January morning. I imagined a bear, lumbering black hump in the back by the bin when I looked out the window this morning, but no bear was there, just the green bin, steady and square, and the dark road and leafless limbs swaying in November wind that should have denned, but wanders instead the alleys of January. A couple more found poems. Silver stream ran obsessed, the pond a quest, a perfect shell. Time percolates, the flavor of possible, and the carafe pouring a continuous long light crystallizes the existential. Darkness always arrives, meanders unexpected, gray and gray, night-flecked bowl, stars avid. Enough is silence, meadow of sheer light and jubilation, grass of feathers, this wing enough. And a poem in 2 parts, Wizard. 1. Tuned to shadow, fletched with silence, quiver of stealth. What genius to hear the precise angle of breath, to calibrate hunger, weigh attention, gauge the advantage of surprise, feathers silent as a knife, brushing the cheek, talons grasping the throat with awe. 2. Perched in plain sight and cloaked with invisibility and ventriloquism, The owl offers no flourish, no magician's fanned wing of playing cards, until the rabbit, yanked in limp wonder from a brushed top hat of long grass, the snake, a writhing wand of silken scarves. Captive. This opens with an epigraph from Jim Harrison. We have misunderstood the stars. I am the wounded wife of stars, blistered in their savage sway, innocent of stellar theft. I told them secrets, now regret that howling into blackened night. I wear the scars of their deceit, am blinded by their scalding gleam, their vigils of inflamed desire. I once believed them absolute, tattooed their silvered silhouettes on swales of flesh, an elegy and promise of eternal trance. But now I cannot trust their course in carom streaks through pinball sky. The stars are warring, let them dance. With studded shields and blazing swords, they carve a brothel from the dark, seduce with diamonds, day unstained, as every urgent thrust of stars condemns my longing for the moon. They bind me in their felted cloaks to pierce my dreams with nails of light. I am the forsworn bride of night, impaled by stars. I cannot sleep. And I'm going to read a few more found poems, and these are mostly about writing, and I have a tendency to do quite a few of these about writing, the process. The grueling desk, the name of flight, the ocean's dream, an inside light, the shredded message whispered, write. To write that voice, merge the sympathetic breezes, slip in an afterthought of each narrowing harmony, finish, punctuate, linger. Confectionery text, each meticulous line, colors of haiku. To render the particular, X-ray a bunch of beauty, punctuate order, make a mess. If you're bad, each day the poem rises. And this is a poem that rose out of being bad. The lovesick tablecloth. I never did love the knife. Just once I felt his dull serrations. It wasn't his fault. He didn't intend to cut me. But after that, his very weight made me cringe. For a long time, I was obsessed with plates. The cup accused me of chasing anything flat, and perhaps there was some truth in her words, though I never lusted for a trivet. I dreamed of plates. Oh God, sometimes 2 or even 3 at a time, slipping into my folds, those long nights in the dark drawer, the silky sheen of porcelain skin, the subtle rubbing. It had to end. I was a wreck in the morning, a wrinkled mess, couldn't lie still. I talked to the washing machine, the clothesline, the iron, even the drawer, until everyone was sick of my pathetic whining. Funny, what ended it was a picnic at the beach. Sand in my seams, and the plates were done with me. After that, there were dalliances, goblet, candelabra, peppermill. I've never told anyone this, but one night, wine-soaked after a party, I got into it with the centerpiece. Best not to discuss it. The cup, jealous I suppose, made insinuations about my relations with the table, but that was too incestuous, even for me. I hated what had happened to my reputation. For a couple of months, I stayed in the drawer, did my yoga, listened to the chatter of the napkins. I'm more serious now, more subdued. The cup says all I think about is my work, but that's not true. all I think about is soap. The almost inaudible popping of iridescent bubbles, warm and wet around me. The heady scent that lingers in my very fibers. Uh-oh. I lost the last page. Nobody, and I should know, right? Nobody dances like soap. I want my soap again. Now, come on, gravy. Do your worst, spaghetti. Let me feel your coffee cup. Oh, my beloved soap. Let's talk dirty. So you can just leave that. As a part of the process of looking for all these words for found poems, I find a lot of words that are quite wonderful, but that I don't really feel like I will use in poems. And when I collect a lot of them on a particular theme, then I make a cover image for my Facebook page. So I did one, and Luther surprised me with a poem. So I'm going to ask him to come up and read his poem, and then I will be back to finish up.
Well, her birthday kind of snuck up on me, and I wasn't quite ready. But then she posted this, and I thought, aha, I've got it. So, for Judy, it's your birthday. May transfixed marshmallows lead only to uninterrupted s'mores. Pastrami friends will gather at the Egg Hotel. Oh, we will celebrate like potatoes, like carrots of splendor, inclusive carrots, mid-career carrots, voluptuous, voluminous artichokes, and a single inspirational olive. The melon has begun raving. Its mind dining on sculptural pie, square honey, and peanuts freshly caught. Postmodern praline, every pie a story of each savory year. And on this day, we will prohibit all insects flavorful with nature, hip calories and wrist sodas, whatever those might be. It's your birthday, so have an extra helping of this experimental licorice, important tequila, and a bite of my eel candy. And I will have nothing more to say except more Jell-O, my fierce tart. And afterwards, we will speak with the peculiar butter, sprightly butter on worthy toast, a puree of yesterday with a vinegar memoir, knowing that in this moment, our vegetables are but cake with candles, nations of cake, and love, period, and bacon.
Oh, there's the last page of my previous poem. So I'm going to end with a couple of Thanksgiving-related poems, a regular poem and a found poem. Thanksgiving. For all the times we were not alone with grief, for all the times we were abandoned by despair, for every morning we have awakened, for every fresh idea, for all the times we have fallen and stood up again, for each moment we have been warm and dry and safe enough, the times we have not been hungry, the times we have given or received, for the rope into the abyss that is family, friendship, love. For all of this, we are grateful. By all of this, fulfilled. You can see prayers on the evening air, silvered wing of lace, molten attention of light. We need the miraculous. Thank you. Again.
Thank you to both of you. I think we all need more splendor of carrots in our lives. We'll take a short break, but while we're doing that and you're getting something to eat or drink, please also take a look at the books we have available here. And if you haven't yet signed up for our open mic, the sign-up sheet is over here. And we'll get going with our open mic in a few minutes. So, again, thank you, Luther and Judy.